The following video contains spoilers. We suggest watching the episodes alone in the dark. Hello, Wolfpack! We're back! Welp, we've had a lot of fun pissing off the Are You Afraid of the Dark fanboys in our last Top 5 video, so now it's time to do the reverse of my usual cynical complaining. Unbridled praising and defending! In spite of my views on Are You Afraid of the Dark, this series was still cool, quality entertainment that lasted to nearly 100 episodes of supernatural horror, plus a modernized miniseries, so there's obviously still a lot more to love than hate about it. But what if I told you that there were even some polarizing stories on this show that divided the fans? Yes, even a fun horror series like Are You Afraid of the Dark was not above petty arguments between the fan base, especially in regards to the stories made in the show's later years. However, there were some tales that I actually liked, which the hardcore fans labeled as total fail bombs. These episodes honestly felt enjoyable to me, yet most of the Midnighters claimed that they sucked and were not nearly as good as the superior critically acclaimed titles. You know, like the Renegade Virus.
Going up.
Have you ever had one of those titles which everyone around the globe says totally sucks and is the worst story ever, but you kind of liked it and didn't understand the hatred that clouds it? Well, that's how I feel about these hidden gems from everyone's classic horror anthology saga. I know the show has had its bad eggs, but these were shorts which I feel get too much unwarranted scorn from people. They're the kind of plots that you didn't view as bad as their reputation precedes. So naturally, I'm here to defend why these tales in particular are not the embarrassment of Are You Afraid of the Dark, but instead secretly good prizes hidden behind the more glamorous ones. You're of course free to disagree, but this is my show, so I'm going to do whatever I want. Nah 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 nah. So gather around the campfire because we're going to defend a handful of tales from our favorite beloved children's horror series. These are my top 5 Are You Afraid of the Dark tales that I love, but everyone else hates.
Tale of the Reanimator.
Now this might be the most hated scary tale on this list. While I do agree that the Reanimator does have its fair share of issues, this one really wasn't as bad as people claim it is. How bad is its reputation? Well, IMDb actually places this episode in Decayed Skull territory. Yeah, it's that despised. However, I don't think it's even close to the same level as Bad Egg or Poop Day from Majar. In fact, there are some highlights here. So, what's this episode even about? Well, this is around the time when Are You Afraid of the Dark started doing some different ideas during the infamous revival era of the show. They began doing safe, child-friendly versions of popular R-rated horror stories. These included The Phantom of the Opera, Christine, Pygmalion, and even Silent Hill-esque shenanigans of all things. This episode was a very loose remake of The Reanimator, but from the perspective of children. In Are You Afraid of the Dark's version of The Reanimator, we follow some kind-hearted shy girl named Julie, who's picked on by her idiot bully big brother and his idiot friend, while also working at a flower shop for not Jeffrey Combs. She soon finds out that her flower shop is secretly a front, so not Jeffrey Combs can work on his true master project, an elixir that can revive the dead. He's been using the flower store so he can test the potion on plant life first before seeing if it can work on higher life forms. But Julie's idiot bully big brother gets his fat hands on it and accidentally drops the resurrection potion on a grave, meaning that a zombie comes back to life and goes after the kids. Oh boy! Now that's all pretty cool, and it leads to some super great stuff in an otherwise simple episode. For one thing, I just want to say that I absolutely adore Julie. She is just so dang cute.
Peter, you'll never believe what I just saw. Oh, hi Jake.
Hey.
Aww, she's so sweet. I can at least say that I don't want to see her die, which is a lot more than what I can say for about half these other forgettable kid heroes. Also, when the zombie is unleashed, he starts stalking the kids in order to get his hands on the elixir of life, since it can apparently feed his strength, and he tracks the trio down all throughout the whole story, almost acting like the nemesis from Resident Evil, since he's creepily relentless and never stops pursuing our naive heroes until he can kill them. This leads to many outstanding camera shots and horror visuals that feel spectacular. I mean, look at these horror scenes. They just look like something you'd see from a really great horror movie. That's real fantastic work for an episode people said was worse than the Maple Street remake. It's a pretty competently made episode that just drips with atmosphere and makes us fear for our hero. However, there was one major issue that I did agree on. It was a big problem that held the episode back in my mind. The makeup and costume job on the zombie is awful. After so much amazing build-up and legit scary moments, this episode loses some momentum when we see the true form of the zombie. And
Don't you start too. I'm not falling for it. Peter, she's not kidding. Oh, what? Now I'm supposed to turn around and say,
wow, is that weak. I hate how the zombie looks so fake in this, since it's clearly just a guy in torn up clothes and covered in dirt, which is terrible even by this show's standards. How could the same show that gave us Jake the Snake, the Ghastly Grinner, Count Orlok, and the Pool Zombie give us this bad zombie cosplayer? It's cheap. What's worse is that earlier, the idiot bullies had these awesome-looking plant mutant costumes on so they could prank the kid's sister, which actually look better than the real monster does. Making me ask why the show didn't make the scary stalker a plant monster rather than a wannabe walker. It's pretty much why I have this tale so low on the list. The zombie's appearance sucks, but to be fair, the rest of the story is halfway decent. I would dare say that there were a few other good elements that raised the plot up a bit. The main character, Julie, is so lovable, the filmmaking is excellent, the narrative is simple enough to follow, and the story is actually scary and fun. Julie eventually grows a spine in the end too, fulfilling her own character arc and defeating her nemesis. The kids find out that the zombie is drawn to the elixir, so Julie stands up for herself and orders her idiot bully brother to listen to her, where she uses him as bait to lure the zombie into a death trap, putting an end to it once and for all. That's pretty cool. I love that our little Miss Hero stands up for herself in the end and uses her brain to trick the physically powerful monster. The idiot bully getting traumatized for life is also a huge plus too in my book. So Julie is no longer shy, the idiot bully stops picking on his kid sister, the bootleg nemesis is dead, and not Jeffrey Combs disposes of his Monster Reborn card, since these were powers humanity was not meant to have. Cheesy, yes, but it does feel like a regular story you'd expect from Are You Afraid of the Dark? Did people just hate the revival era and the zombie makeup so much that they tossed the story aside so harshly? I really don't think it's that bad, let alone one of the worst episodes ever. It's just a quirky side mission from the Reanimator movie, and has some of Resident Evil Nemesis mixed in for younger audiences. That's so cool. Are You Afraid of the Dark tries Resident Evil themes. How did that not catch on? Not the best tale, but certainly not the worst. I love this episode because it's fun, because Julie is so endearing, because not Jeffrey Combs was a tad funny, and unlike many of the totally dreadful revival tales, this one actually reached scary levels a few times. Not a perfect subject, but I think the Reanimator deserves a reanalysis.
The Tale of the Walking Shadow.
This episode was intended to be Are You Afraid of the Dark's shout out to Shakespeare, but sadly it didn't make a dent on anyone's memories because the show's target audience doesn't have much knowledge of Shakespearean drama, and only kept up with the show to see the awesome ghosts. But unlucky for them, this was instead another Are You Afraid of the Dark ghost redemption story.
Yay!
Now, I won't lie, my patience for these schmaltzy ghost redemption arcs has grown very thin, especially since Are You Afraid of the Dark has at least 2 ghost stories where the ghost was secretly the good guy twist every dang season. Though I can at least say that this one was one of the better versions. In this tale, we follow an awkward dork named Ross who joined Drama Club to impress his crush, Carly Beth from The Haunted Mask. The Goosebumps Are You Afraid of the Dark crossover will come to fruition. Unbeknownst to the Drama Club, their school's auditorium is haunted by wicked spirits, and to add even more bad luck onto Ross, their school is also adapting the play Macbeth, a play that is legendary for being jinxed in Drama Club. Oh man, Ross is in some big doo-doo, and it looks like his sister Monica can't save him this time. As you can all guess, bad things happened around the school's play, and it's soon revealed that a real ghost of a dead student is haunting the drama club, his main target being Ross, since our kid hero is playing the role that the ghost was supposed to act as before he tragically died.
And that's what makes it scary. That is what makes it scary. And that's what makes it scary. That is what makes it scary. And that's what makes it scary. That is what makes it scary. And that's what makes it scary. That is what makes it scary.
I was kind of afraid this episode would be vomit-inducing glurge once the show starts hinting at the ghost's tragic backstory, and how he was just like Ross, since he signed up for drama class in order to impress his own crush too. But he died before he could tell her that he loved her. Luckily, the story is pretty entertaining, since it feels like a much, much better version of the Haunting Hour stage fright, but actually good. Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think this is a good version of stage fright. There's no goofy comedy or nonsensical BS writing, but rather a focus on a tragic student's death and how he was really haunting the play in order to finish the role he always wanted to play to impress his crush. Basically a way to wrap up his unfinished business and move on to the afterlife. That's kind of touching. Now, I will confess that there are a few stupid things here too, like when the ghost takes out one of the actors to swap places in the play with him, because he then gets into a death battle with Ross, and all the drama students just take a seat and enjoy the show. What? Yeah, they all just stop everything to watch Ross fight for his life because that's thrilling drama, I guess. Still better than the sequel trilogy, but in our twist ending, the ghost reveals that he was never out to kill anyone. He just wanted to act out the scene with Ross to finish his final acting role, where it turns out that the girl he had a crush on was really the school's drama teacher, who is all grown up now. Oh, and the drama teacher was secretly a ghost too. Huh? Yeah, the school's drama teacher was also a spirit. Thank goodness this school never does any background checks on their employees, otherwise this magical romance would never have been possible. And the ghosts hook up before ascending into heaven.
Oh sure, why not?
And Ross wins Carly Beth's heart in the end, since he looks hot in that armor and is charming. Yay for nice guys. But for reals, I think this episode was decent. Most Are You Afraid of the Dark fans hate this tale because they found it super boring and slow. Understandable, because this show does take its long time explaining the ghost actor's backstory and referencing Shakespeare a whole lot. But I thought the romances had their sweet moments. The haunted stage setting was utilized much better on here than on R.L.Stine's shows. The funny moments were alright. The ghost did have his intimidating moments. The plot is balanced out well enough. The atmosphere feels eerie, and I thought it was one of the more harmless revival-era tales. This is not exactly one of the tales which I absolutely love, but one that was more so okay than anything close to horrible. This tale does not deserve the negative reception it gets just because it was with the bad season. Yes, the revival seasons of Are You Afraid of the Dark had their fair share of lame stinkers, but this is definitely not one of them. There were a handful of scares and pretty charming scenes. I was amused for the most part. While most fans blow this one off for remaining under the shadows of Are You Afraid of the Dark seasonal rot, I think it certainly earns more time to shine in the spotlight.
The Tale of the Stone Maiden.
Aw yeah, now we're getting into the underrated best episodes on my list. I am unashamed to say that this was one of the last great episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark's final season. The final season of the series opened up with the critically acclaimed story arc, The Tale of the Silver Sight, which everyone and their grandpa loved, and argued should have been the true finale of our classic TV series. But for some stupid reason, the final season still had a few spare tales left to keep it going, and ended on the piece of crap Night Nurse. However, I would say that some of these remaining extra adventures weren't all that bad. Since this episode was a great one among them, The Stone Maiden is about a misunderstood shy artist girl named Julie, no relation, who has a bad breakup with her boyfriend Kevin since she finds out that Kevin's parents would never approve of their relationship because Kevin's mom and pop are rich elitists who want Kevin to focus on his professional life and don't like the idea of their intellectual son dating a middle-class artist girl. Ugh. They naturally have a fight since Kevin is too ballsless to defend his lady, but like a moron, Kevin accidentally drinks some magic poison water from a haunted statue. The titular Stone Maiden, who curses him to become a petrified statue stuck in endless misery with her. Holy cow, is that dark. People whined on and on that this episode sucks because it's not scary. But some poor random guy gets turned to stone and is trapped in it forever, fully conscious, well aware of his imprisonment, and stuck in eternal agony for the rest of his life. Some people thought there weren't any scary moments in this? What? Being frozen forever and in eternal pain is terrifying. Don't worry though, because Julie discovers her ex-boyfriend's pickle and vows to save him from his torment. And the entirety of this episode essentially becomes a modern-day Dungeons & Dragons quest where Julie travels on a dangerous path to find a spell to free her lost lover, and gain some self-respect for her mind along the way. While on her dangerous journey, Julie teams up with, no joke, a crazy homeless man who claims to be the guardian warrior who promised to protect the world from the Stone Maiden's toxic magic, and a sassy, strong, independent woman who's the famous artist that created the stone statue. They vow to help her on her mission to heal her trapped boyfriend, forging a peculiar friendship along the way. Honestly, I think Julie's Fellowship of the Stone here helped make this episode all the more amusing and entertaining, since Crazy Homeless Man and Sassy Artist Lady were some of the most enjoyable side characters I've ever seen. The Sassy Artist Lady is basically a grown-up version of Julie, a girl who was once laughed at for being a loser too, before she rose to fame by having faith in herself and ignoring all the naysayers who brushed off her artwork. She apparently created the Stone Maiden with a magic rock, but the reason why the Stone Maiden is cursed and poisoning others is because she actually had a boy statue attached to her monument, which was broken away. So the Stone Maiden is turning men into stone until she can have a new boy statue to be her man. And basically the warrior team has to locate the second half of the statue somewhere across the city to reunite the stone lovers and break the magic spell. The crazy homeless guy is also very funny, and unlike most awful comic relief characters in these type of stories, he's actually useful. The homeless man claims that he's guarded the Stone Maiden for many centuries, but it's never quite made clear if he's telling the truth or not about being a real warrior knight, or if he's just a deluded homeless guy. I kind of like that the show never tells us which it is, since that makes him kind of compelling and forces us to make our own interpretation thanks to his wild actions in the episode. Speaking of which, one of my favorite scenes in this tale comes from the crazy homeless knight. The team manages to track down the second half of the statue being moved into a new museum, but while the ladies bicker with the truckers over how they need the stone back and nobody believes me cliché, the crazy homeless man just carjacks them and forcibly drives off with the statue all the way back to the park himself.
Get on the truck.
No, you can't! Look, they made a mistake, okay? The statue never should have been sold in the first place. Why don't you just put it back?
Can't do that. I've got a signed order here that says that this thing has got to... Hey! Hey!
Now that's hilarious. I mean, how many times can you say that in your horror story, the hero saved the day by carjacking the U-Haul workers? I actually love these characters. Julie has quite the colorful squad mates on her campaign. My sibling Wolf would be so jelly. While the story is kept a bit simple, the characters in this one are so fun and so memorable. Why did people hate this? So the heroes reunite the Stone Maiden with her stone lover, the idiot boyfriend is saved, Julie achieves her self-worth, and the homeless man and the artist woman hook up and marry. Wait, what? When the heck did this happen? The artist lady tells Julie and the audience that this wacky experience brought them closer together, and that love doesn't always have to make sense, since love works in many mysterious ways. And I think you all know where this is heading. Of course, the rich parents accept Julie after bravely rescuing their son, and Julie and Kevin get back together to live happily ever after. All in all, I thought this was just a super exciting dark fantasy. I honestly enjoyed most of it. While it's a tad light on the scary moments, I think this episode was intended to be more or less a high fantasy story over a grim nightmare. A ton of folks didn't like this idea, but considering that quite a few horror anthology shows have experimented with other genres and more fantastical works before, I thought this was one of the better attempts. Like I said, this is all a D&D adventure set during the modern day, and Are You Afraid of the Dark just wanted to have fun with that. The story was also meant to be a loose parody of the Greek myth Pygmalion, but I think it worked better as a standalone story. I mean, just because it wasn't scary doesn't mean it's not good. Look at Toy Train and Grandpires. Those were not even close to terrifying, but they had excellent quality content. Even Are You Afraid of the Dark had tales which were more than just horror stories, so why does this one get the hammer dropped on it? I don't think it earns the wrath of fans, since this one was just over-the-top fantasy fun, with endearing heroes, a tragic villain, dark fridge horror, a decent romance, and was all around something that felt new for the show. While some folks might not fall in love with this story, The Stone Maiden is a solid piece of art. The evidence is just concrete. Get it? Concrete. Like stone. Shut up.
The tale of the zombie.
Now here's a tale of suspense that definitely should be on the show's best episodes list. The Zombie Dice is an underrated cautionary tale teaching kids the consequences of gambling, and why you shouldn't put your trust in strangers who seem far too good to be true. We follow Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon and his idiot bros visiting a whimsical underground arcade arena, owned by this ominous gaming manager dubbed Mr. Click. He's a wannabe Riddler villain who is using this arcade to secretly trick children into falling in debt with him, where he can promise them a way they can work things out if they owe him too much. Naturally, many idiotic children fall for his charms since he offers high prizes, and they get duped into challenging him to a special game. A game that can also raise all their debts. A wild game of chances and risks called Zombie Dice.
He said it! He said it!
But Mr. Click never loses the game of Zombie Dice, and often uses it to trick kids into giving him their souls. As you can predict, Hiccup's idiot friend loses to him, gets taken, and soon Mr. Click plans to take our hero next. Evidently, Mr. Click's real endgame is that he abducts children to then shrink them down to action figures so he can sell them to morally ambiguous billionaires across the world because miniature children are the latest trend in the black market. What? Now, some of you might be asking why he doesn't just patent his incredible shrinking technology in epic arcade games to make himself those billions of dollars, but obviously that would ruin the plot. I concur that there are some stupid moments, but this episode just feels so fun. Mr. Click is a sly, cunning manipulator who feels like a real scary, sinister, creepy stranger character. He's so amusing to watch that you do believe these kids see him as just a fun-loving guy who wants to entertain kids. But he's also very dark at how he hides his metaphorical human trafficking agenda deep down. I think he's a great villain that represents a master loan shark, since he shows kids the dark side of getting in too deep with gambling, especially with sketchy characters like him. A lot of haters toss this one into the crap pile as well, since of course, it's a tale from the revival seasons, and most viewers saw it as ridiculous stupidity with a non-scary monster and forgettable storytelling, but I disagree strongly. The zombie dice is quite riveting, since Hiccup is one of the few smart kid heroes in the series. Mr. Click is super disturbing thanks to his real-world parallels to actual gambling criminals. The setting is pretty fun, since it's a secret arcade like on TMNT, and the episode does a very admirable job at raising the stakes. Mr. Click uses gambling games to con his victims, which mainly rely on pure chance, so the suspense is just as heavy for us as it is for the gamers.
You'll notice that one side on each shows a red skull. You roll the dice 3 times. If a skull appears even once, you lose. If not, you win.
That's total luck.
Indeed.
Forget it, I thought we were gonna play a real game.
But we are. The game is to see if you have the nerve to play, or if you're a coward, like your friend.
You're on a bud.
This is also nitpicky, but a few people actually complained why this episode was called the Zombie Dice when there are no actual zombies in it. Oh, boo-hoo-hoo, awful. Okay, first off, the game is called Zombie Dice. Mr. Click just calls his dice game Zombie Dice because it sounds cool. His crooked dice have zombie emblems, but that's about it. Sorry, he's no Duke Devlin. Secondly, there is a single zombie in this. Mr. Click's Igor manservant here. Mr. Click has a slave who is strongly hinted at being a zombie serving him and his criminal activities, but that's about it. I suspect that the undead slave had a part in making the zombie dice and just lost a gamble with the villain too. The story also hints that Mr. Click might be an alien since he just has shrinking tech on standby and claims to have done stuff like this for a long time. It's never outright stated, but I think the episode implies that Mr. Click might not be entirely human himself, making him feel much more frightening. Some of the Midnighters view Mr. Click as the most pathetic villain in the show's history, but I thought he was one of the better antagonists. He's a mix of both fun and energetic thanks to how smart he is and his talent for smooth manipulation, but scary because of how taking advantage of poor kids is just business in his eyes, and his total disregard for those he hurts. He's like the bastard love child between the Riddler and Fear. How does this guy and his evil business not scare you? Eventually, Hiccup wises up to Mr. Click's deceptions and challenges him to a game of wits in order to save his friends and family. A ton of whiners also complain because this didn't end with the typical Scooby-Doo chasing with a big stupid monster, but I thought this tale had an epic climax by the end. Hiccup dares to challenge Mr. Click at his own gambling game to outsmart the villain, where I have to say he beats the creep in a very clever way.
I say I can drink these 2 mugs of soda before you drink that 1 small glass.
Cool. You're nuts.
All I want is a head start. You can't pick up your glass until I finish 1 mug and put it back down again.
There must be a trick. You'll move my glass.
Oh no, see, I can't touch your glass. And you can't touch either of my mugs. Well, if I win, we go free. But then I get your thumbprint.
Agreed.
All right.
I get a head start, right?
Agreed, and no touching each other's glasses.
Agreed.
You have to drink the others a bit faster than that.
Ready?
If you are.
What?
Oh, yeah. You can't touch his glass. Those are the rules. He's gonna finish before you.
That's not fair. You said that I can't.
Oh, it's fair, all right. You agreed.
That was amazeballs. How did nobody like this episode? Well, one thing that I did hate in this plot was the conclusion. Mr. Click loses everything because his overconfidence was his weakness, and as he tries to make his getaway, his zombie minion finally has enough of his abuse and kills him. At least I think he kills him. He either offed him off screen or shrunk Mr. Click down in his own shrink machine, but it ends with the zombie minion saying it's game over before he moves on to find himself or something, while all the kids are set free. Yeah, the ending is kind of a cop-out, but I thought overall the tale was super enjoyable. I will defend that there are some creepy moments in this, but they're a lot more subtle compared to the in-your-face horror demons, killer clowns, aliens, and ghosts that we usually get. I like this kind of ominous horror writing. It's great to see the show testing out some new styles, and this one was so much fun, as well as super effective at teaching children a good lesson on both stranger danger and gambling addictions. Are You Afraid of the Dark was really playing its cards with a new deck, but I think it was a gamble that certainly paid off.
Would you care to wager on that?
No.
Before we get to our number one, here are a few honorable mentions. The Tale of Jake the Snake. I've already done a long video on why this was a good tale, in spite of its flaws, but I think this was one of the best stories during both the revival era and the franchise as a whole. It just didn't make it on my list because I found out that tons of people already love it without question. The Tale of Jake and the Leprechaun. This was another episode that I thought was just good old-fashioned fun. The Leprechaun and the evil Banshees actors definitely made this episode so fun to watch and salvage a lot of this tale's potential. Sadly, this didn't make it on the list because the child actor for Jake was still pretty bad. The Tale of C7. This episode does not gain too much appreciation from the fans, but I think it was great. It's pretty much another ghost romance story, but a real good one. A lot of folks do agree that this one was also decent already, but I wanted to add it on here just to give it more recognition. And finally, we reach our number one.
Tale of the Phone Police.
Oh yeah, that's right, I'm saying it. The Tale of the Phone Police is an unironically good episode. This story gets way too much hate, despite being a million times better than the stupid Quicksilver demon. If you watch or follow any other Are You Afraid of the Dark fan, they will claim that this tale was one of the dumbest episodes of the series, for its annoying main characters, its stupid premise, and its laughably dumb villains, the Phone Police. Despite all odds against it, I enjoyed this one so much. This story is about two bratty prankster kids who love making prank phone calls, getting their over-the-top comeuppance through the wacky hijinks of the secret police force hidden underneath the phone company. After abusing their phone privileges one too many times, the main character Jake's older sister tells the dynamic dunderheads that if they don't stop abusing their phones, then the phone police will come and get them. like they did for a bad little boy named Billy Baxter, who mysteriously disappeared a long time ago. They of course don't believe her until Jake gets haunted by the lost Billy Baxter begging him for help. The kids go to the Adam West phone company to seek information, but dun dun dun, it was all a police sting operation by the phone police. Yep, the phone coppers trace the phone call to Jake and are imprisoning him for his crimes of prank calling. Jake's idiot friend manages to elude capture, but the majority of the episode becomes about busting his bro out of phone prison. So many claim this to be a totally out there concept that's too silly to take seriously, but I have to ask, have you seen this show? Are You Afraid of the Dark has always been a goofy show with totally out there horror settings. The secret police monitoring everyone's phones was too stupid for you to take in? Everybody loved the stupid renegade virus, the face stealer witch, and the Emperor Palpatine ghoul, but the secret police abducting children was 100% moronic? What the heck? While the concept does have its amount of cheesy moments, the phone police are both darkly intimidating and kind of funny. They still come across as very threatening villains menacing our main protagonists, and the story has its fair share of dark moments. The idiot friend manages to make it to his buddy's house to ask the older sister for help, but it turns out that the phone police already erased all proof of Jake's existence, and absolutely nobody has any memories of who the boys are. Yeah, the phone police can purge all information about their criminals to ensure that no one can ever find them. The fact that the phone police have more power than the Men in Black makes this super unnerving. Oh, and while Jake hangs out in phone prison, we literally see some other child being dragged off to his execution. Yes, the phone police actually drag away a crying child, kicking and screaming, off-screen to his death. Okay, I added that last part in, but we never ever see the other prisoners ever again. So yes, that kid is dead, and the phone police are willing to kill people, all just because they abuse their phones. That's both dark and kind of humorous. I mean, who doesn't laugh a little bit at how super serial these guys are over phone misuse? I think something that helps add a flavor of creepiness is that the phone police have a very striking resemblance to Nazis and basically run their prison like a death camp. The fact that they can watch over everyone through their phones also makes them feel like the Big Brother secret police straight out of 1984 and They Live. Yet people still thought they weren't scary. A secret Illuminati organization that can abduct and kill whoever they want and bug every phone is too lame. How?
The world may never know.
This episode does dabble its hands into some comedy, which is pretty hit and miss. I loved a lot of this tale's sense of humor, and the lame jokes were not as bad as something crappy like Stage Fright or The Leprechaun Artist. So this tale was able to succeed at having some fun with these concepts, without destroying the fear factor of the phone police. A lot of people who hated this story say the phone police were just so cringy, but they did have their funny moments, mostly due to how extra the phone motif is. My absolute favorite part of the episode comes from this scene. When Jake's idiot friend springs him out of the hoosegow, the boys try making a run for it, but then the phone police chase them down on their military minivan, where they actually activate a dial tone siren. Yes, a dial tone siren. That's so hilarious. Why did people crap all over this episode? This is so insane that I just loved every minute of it. This is Are You Afraid of the Dark's Deranged Madness over 9,000.
9,000?!
Now, much like the tale of the zombie dice, the ending is kind of a letdown. After running back home to Jake's crib, everything just resets back to normal, and the phone police vanish. Yep, the boys see the pizza man, and they just assume it was all just a dream, which in no way makes any sense at all. But then we see that it was real all along, and the phone police are now watching them. Yeah, I don't get it either. But wasn't it just so fun along the way? I know that's a bit out of character for old Cat to say it was just a dumb fun adventure, but there was a point too. This episode just wanted to tell kids to stop abusing their phones, but naturally through an over-the-top Twilight Zone way, with dark horror and elaborate setups. And considering that some people still abuse their phones today, I would definitely say this was a lesson very relevant by now. It kind of makes me wonder if Nick could do a reboot of the phone police tale, but this time we'd see how the phone police adapted to iPhones and internet technology. That would be so awesome! Nevertheless, I think this episode was phenomenal. I do not understand how anyone could hate this tale of suspense. Sure, it does have its silliness and a lame twist, but the experience was just so dang entertaining. Are You Afraid of the Dark attempts a secret shadow police nightmare, but has a dang ball with the absurdity of it. I'm not even a huge Are You Afraid of the Dark fan, but I thought this was pure amusement. I have seen numerous bad or overhyped stories from this franchise, but this is definitely not one of them. I think the phone police should gain a recall. Some of you guys might still hate the story, but I thought it was cool. Which is why this is my number one Are You Afraid of the Dark tale that I love, but everyone else hates. And those were my top 5 underrated tales of suspense. Solid proof that even Are You Afraid of the Dark has polarizing fan opinions. I know I probably won't change anyone's minds about all these episodes, but I just hope some of you Midnight Society members are willing to see that some good can be uncovered even by this show's lackluster trips. I'd recommend watching these tales since while flawed, I think they are still awesome overall. So, do any of you agree that these episodes are indeed good? Did I change anyone's mind about them? Were there any tales you would have added to the list? Do you still hate them? What stories do you love that others hate? Well, feel free to post in the comments section below, because right now, I've got a ball of yarn to play with. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, or just tune in for more videos posted here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and I declare this meeting of the Midnight Society closed.
Peggy, don't save dinner for me tonight. I'll explain everything later, but right now I'm afraid I have to break the law.
Phone police, open up! We know what you did, Hank Hill!